Welcome to Two Main Friends. We're your hosts,
Natasha,
and Lindsey.
grab your coffee and come sit with us for a bit.
Another year, another decade. We're jumping in.
Yeah, to the roaring 20s.
I love it. What were your 20s like? If you had to describe your 20s, how would you describe them?
Oh, I loved my 20s. There was so much adventure and life experiences and highs and lows and lots of learning, lots of
Mhm.
learning. um,
Yeah.
and I I wouldn't trade my 20s. All of it was great. It started out being on staff at the church I was working at, which was one of the best experiences of my life. Um, Met my husband, got engaged, got married, had both of my kids. So that decade was full. It was very full and very full of a lot of life. And I wouldn't trade it. It was good.
Yeah.
There's lots of like I said, highs and lows for sure, but it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
What about you? How are your 20s?
I would say fast, chaotic, but good.
Because you did a
If
lot of
I-
traveling for masters in 20s, right? So you were like
yeah,
on the road a lot.
on the road all the time. I can remember one trip that we took in masters. We're taking full on college classes, whether it was through the Berean studies through the AG, or we were synced up with colleges. So we would take, and I was doing college classes. And I can remember this one trip. I was on staff at this point, but we had driven from Maine to DC and stayed the night in DC. We were going to Texas. That was our final destination. Stayed the night in DC. We woke up at 2, 3 in the morning, got on the bus. We're headed out because Pastor Chad was all about as early as possible on the road. Let's go. And he would do this hand signal like this, carry on. We're gonna make it. And our bus broke down on the side of the road at 3 in the morning in DC. Not ideal. And the tow truck came, and there was this little tiny truck. Our students are sitting in the back. It's freezing cold. It's February. Our students are sitting in the back of the bed of a truck to be transported from the highway to wherever we were going. And we were all getting on vans, and I don't even know how we got where we were going, but we got there. We ended up at a Golden Corral. We had to wait in the parking lot. They towed the bus with some of us on it, and so we had to wait in the Golden Corral parking lot until they opened. And then we sat there for 4 hours eating breakfast for whatever it seemed like forever while we waited for our rental cars to go through. And then we took rental cars, and there was only five of us that were eligible to drive. And so we had two passenger vans and four, sorry, there's more, three of us that drove, I think, the cars. Anyway, there were three or four of us that drove regular cars. We had 40 students at that point. And so then we drove to Tennessee. We slept on a church floor. I don't even think that was in the plans, to be honest. But we got there super late. And then the next morning we woke up super early, got on the road, made it to Texas. On our way back, we stopped at a church and we did ministry at a church on our way back because we went for a conference in Texas. But what I remember on the way back is we're driving in our cars. We barely slept the night before, and all of us were exhausted. We ended up having to pull over because one of our drivers was just done. She was tuckered out, and she was like, I got to sleep for a couple hours. So we slept at a rest stop, and I remember sleeping on the slab of counter space in this rest stop because I was so tired and I needed to stretch my legs out. And so that was one trip of many that have similar stories of no sleep. No sleep in my 20s, I think, was probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild. I mean,
Mhm.
I love intern stories, probably because I was an intern.
Mhm.
And that kind of goes back to college years, but it bled into me being on staff. And so the stories that I could tell you of the things I had to do
Mhm.
at as an intern, and the motto of my intern years was always just figure it out. Like they would give
Yeah.
us a task and say figure it out, and I had no idea. You don't realize how little life experience you have until you're
Mhm.
presented with a bunch of tasks that you're like, wow, I don't know how to do anything. And
Yes.
thought I was a pretty capable person.
Yeah.
And then they would be like, here, drive this van to Boston, fill it with 6,000 pounds of food, drive back to here and unload it. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't the driver back then. Thank the Lord for that. But our driver wasn't always safe. So, I mean, we survived and had to do all sorts of things. And I think that's what made it so great. Like,
Mhm.
it was the adventure of figuring it out. And I
Yeah.
think if there was a motto for my 20s, it was probably that. Like, because even, starting a relationship, moving back to Maine, starting a family, like you're just figuring it out. And
Yeah.
there's so many great stories, and I won't bore you with all of them, but sometimes when you like interact, I was talking to another person a couple years ago who was also an intern, and we would just laugh because we weren't even an intern at the same time or in the same church, but there's something about an intern experience that like you just don't get otherwise, and you can
It's true.
relate to the other people because you're like, in what context in any other part of life would you ever be doing any of this?
Mhm.
Not at all, but here
Never.
we are, and I've got
Yeah.
a paintbrush and we're figuring it out. Like,
Yes. Yes.
one of
I
my favorite moments, just a real quick story. We were in the middle of a building project, and I have stories for days about this building project. And when I tell you that I knew nothing, I knew nothing. And they were like, here, you're going to do all these things for this building project. But we had received a donation from a company that had pre-used carpet tiles that could be used again. They had
Mhm.
been ripped out of something, and they were still fully functional, and we needed carpet for our building. So it was like this big miraculous thing. We were super pumped about it because we didn't have any way to carpet the current building we were renovating.
Mhm.
But here's the caveat. We had to hand scrape the glue off
Mm.
of, when I tell you pallets,
Mhm.
pallets of carpet tiles.
Yep. Been there.
And
Similar.
so, like, in what world do you ever have to use, a putty knife to scrape glue off of a carpet?
Yep.
Nowhere. But as an
Yeah.
intern, I sure did that. Did we make it a game for the youth group kids to play? Absolutely.
Yeah. You get real creative as an intern.
Welcome to your 20s.
Welcome to your
I'm
20s.
sure it's probably not the same for everyone, but that was my
Sure.
20s.
Fair, fair. Mine was very like I remember like 20 to 25, it happened fast. Like I blinked and I was 25 all of a sudden. My 20s, like a friend of mine was like, I'm doing this program called Master's Commission. And she was doing one in Lakeland, Florida. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'd been looking on ways, how can I get out of town and out of Dodge fast? And she mentioned that program. I remembered that we had a similar program at the church that I was attending in Florida at the time. And so I Googled the pastor's name to see where he ended up because I knew he was still doing the program. And I found him and I applied. And before I knew it, I was on a plane fast track to New Hampshire to be a part of Master's Commission. And then I was on staff, and then I was moving to Central Maine. And it all just kind of felt like a fever dream, like here we are,
Right?
it's happening. And I can remember like in my third year, I was 23 ish, like going on 23. And I remember saying to my roommate at the time, like, if I don't stay with this program, I either want to live in very northern Maine, which now, no, thank you. Uh, like the Presque Isle area.
No.
Yeah. But I loved it up there when I would visit because I loved the families up there that we would stay with. Like they were just always so welcoming. And they always made sure we had fun. Like
Yeah.
my first snowstorm was spent up there and we grilled in the middle of a snowstorm. I you know, like it was a good time. I almost said the
That is
other
the
thing.
most main thing to do, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then my second was the Waterville Central Maine area. I fell in love with that because I loved the church and I loved the pastor and like just the vision of what they were doing up here at the time. And so then in 2014, I don't know how old I was, 28, I think, not 2014. I was 20, it was 2011. I don't know. I still don't know how old I was in 2011. But I moved. I
You
moved
weren't 30
up
yet. I
this
know
way.
that.
No, I definitely wasn't 30. I was 28 when I started at the staffing job that I had. So I think I was 26 or 25 when I moved up here. So
That would make
26,
sense.
25 or
Mhm.
26 when I moved up here. So like all of that just kind of happened so fast and so quick, which is crazy. But I loved, every minute of it. So it chaotic, but
Yeah.
super, super blessed by it. Are there a lot of things that as I'm older, I'm like, oh, didn't really love that, whatever. Can remember in my 20s, I have always been a quiet person my entire life, and shy. And when I was on staff at the program in New Hampshire, the pastor said, well, you're going to lead our evangelism team.
What?
What? Excuse me? But nothing like pushing you out of your comfort zone, but
Yep.
here. And it was such a great time. And it's one of my favorite memories. And the students that joined the evangelism team and watching them like own it, I was just there to facilitate. Like I was just there to make sure that you weren't jumping off a building. But like watching them like well, yes, if you knew who was in the program, which I can tell you after, you would understand. Let's just say he's a mutual of ours.
I'm
And
sure.
yeah. So, yeah, but getting to see them like step out into their gifts and stuff was like really cool, like where they excelled. So it was fun. But 20s came with a lot of like identifying factors for me because I had now moved from home. I didn't really know anybody up here when I first moved. I will say that 2 weeks into being in the program, I had brought a friend with me, that I knew from back home. She flew with me to New Hampshire and stayed for the weekend. She had previously done master's commission when it was in our home church in Florida, and she stayed and did the program with me. So I had a familiar face and a friend. But she was much older than me, much older. She'll punch me in the face if she hears that. She's a few years older than me.
Sure.
And so, um, so it was a little bit different. Like our friendship was more like mentorship. She was a youth leader when I was in youth group.
Yeah.
But we had a great friendship and just that grew even more. But I still moved from all of the familiarity of home, my parents, all of that, to this program. And so like my 20s for me were really the defining factor of who I am today. Um,
Mhm.
because without that experience, I probably would be, I don't even know where if I was back home, to be honest with you. I have some ideas and they're not good. um, so yeah, like those are some really big defining moments, to characterize who I wanted to be, and
Yeah.
learning of what I didn't want to be too. Because we talk about like we did ministry in our young adult years and we worked in churches, and I can speak for myself that, it wasn't always good. You didn't always get good examples. You sometimes got bad examples. Um, and not just your direct leadership, but just people around you and people in the church. And like you learn a lot and you hear a lot of things. And I think that as somebody who's in their 20s, you're young and impressionable. um, you can either take that and let it be a negative, or you can take that and let it be a positive. And I took both. I learned like who I wanted to be as a person and how I wanted to love people authentically. And I also learned how I didn't want to treat people, because I to this day can remember how certain things made me feel. And I hope that when people are in my presence, they never feel that kind of way.
Right. I would also say that something I learned in my 20s that was really significant for me, um, well, two different thoughts. So I remember I was just talking about this the other day, how sometimes you don't realize what you're in the middle of when it's happening
Hmm.
until you have a chance to look back and realize, wow, that
Yeah.
happened. And and that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now. Like I'm looking back a lot and saying, wow, that was a great season. Or look
Hmm.
at the ways that we were able to help a family or pour into these kids or things like that. And now those
Hmm.
kids are graduating from college and doing all of these life things that in my head they're 8 and 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm still 26, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to come to terms with in that regard. Like sometimes that's hard to like realize. Um, like I'm not 26 anymore. Life has moved on and really fast. And like I feel like I was so focused on the things that either I wanted to learn or needed to experience or was trying to keep up with that I missed some of those things while they were happening. I wasn't able to appreciate what they were.
Mhm.
Um, because I was so focused on so many other things. And in your
Mhm.
20s, like you don't get that, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much happening around you. And like you said, I think chaotic is a great word for your 20s because things are constantly moving and you're always looking for the, or at least for me, I should say, I was always looking for like the next opportunity or when is this going to change or what's going next. And I wasn't settled in like, this is my life and this is how we're moving, right? Like it was
Mhm.
very big. Like in my head, there had to be big things happening all the time.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now that I'm in my mid 30s and kind of looking back and reflecting on it, it's like, wow, like there were a lot of things that happened, but a lot of it was really good. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And like that's great. I just wish that I would have been able to go at a pace that I could recognize that in the moment and
Yeah.
be like, this is a really good thing. And
Mhm.
um so that's one thing that I've just been reflecting on as I look back on my 20s and just realizing like, yeah, a lot happened and I lived a lot of life then, but here we
Mhm.
are and
Yeah.
there's still a lot more life to live. And I'm trying to like be a little bit more intentional about like embracing the moments we have and
Mhm.
recognizing them for what they are so that it doesn't fly by and I look back and be like, man, where did the last 10 years go? Because I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of that happened, right? Like I look back and I'm genuine like, where did the last 10 years go?
Yeah.
And like the fact that 2020 was 6 years ago is still mind blowing to me. Like
Yeah.
I, I can't wrap my brain around that. And yet I feel like I've lived 4 lives since then.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know how time works anymore. I'm not going to pretend to have an answer for that. Um, but I think, I don't know, there's just so many great things about our 20s. And there's so many life lessons that you're learning that you don't realize you're learning until you look
Mhm.
back on it and be like, oh. And like you said about like learning how to treat people and having good examples versus bad examples. And you do see all of that play out. And
Mhm.
you do take away the good things that you um, noticed. And then at the same time you also look at the things that you don't want to take with you.
Mhm.
And I think that also goes about in relationship too. Like I made
Mhm.
great relationships in my 20s. Am I as close to all of those people now? No.
Yeah.
But I will say in my very early 20s, like 20, 21, 22, even 23, I didn't know how to build relationships.
Mhm.
I was very much a friend that like if we worked together or if we did things like we're doing a project or we're working on this event, like we would have a relationship because of proximity. But I
Mhm.
didn't know how to have a relationship with somebody. I honestly think until I met you, like because I was always doing something in like a leadership role. And
Mhm.
so in my head, I thought that meant I can't have relationship with these people because I'm a leader.
Mhm.
And so building relationship with people did not come easy at all.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say in that avenue, I agree that I was very much taught when I did masters, like if you are leading something, you can't be friends with the people. And that was like really hard for me in career base, like as I got older, because I think there has to be balance. Like you can be friendly and you can like separate the two, but you have to make the decision to separate the two. And so like it does make it a little harder on that aspect. And certainly there has to be some level of um communication and building that respect. I hate saying it like that, but like there has to be some sort of divide, but you can
Mhm.
still be friendly and
Right.
still be a leader. Like you have to mimic that. And I just don't know that sometimes it's taught that way or given that
I
way. And so
didn't
it's
see that
hard.
ever taught. And I was in two
Yeah.
different experiences. And
Mhm.
I didn't see in either of those experiences great relationship building.
Mhm.
outside of we work together, so we're colleagues.
Mhm.
And I didn't see relationships with people that were
Mhm.
attending the churches or anything like that. So it's very interesting. And now that like we're leading a church,
Mhm.
right? Like it's very interesting to try to figure out what that looks like because my husband and I are very relationally driven. And
Mhm.
so we build relationship with people. Like that's just how we do life. And
Mhm.
so it's just harder to figure out like where do you draw the line? Like what
Yeah.
is appropriate, what's not.
Mhm.
And I wish that that was a conversation that was talked about more openly with leadership roles because
Mhm.
I think that we can have relationship with people and we should have relationship with people
Mhm.
um, because that's life.
Yeah. No, it's true. You don't wanna be Mrs. Trunchbull from Matilda. Just all business, mean.
And I
Welcome
can
people
fall into that so easy because my nature is very like task oriented. So like if we're
Mhm.
doing a task together, and in some ways I think that's a good entry level way to like get to know someone. Like let's do this task together.
Yeah.
But then over time, like you should be building relationship outside of tasks and not just using someone, right? And
Right.
that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it's easy to like unintentionally just be like, well, they're here, we're doing this, let's go do this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. There's a fine line and a balance that has to be there. And also, like, when you're building a relationship with people that you're leading, they're gonna trust you to lead them more because you've invested the time to, like, see into them, right? And, like, understand them and their point of views and what they enjoy. And a lot of times, what people enjoy is a hobby. This isn't even what this episode is supposed to be about. But, like, if you
Rabbit
get to know
trail.
them off the trail. But if you get to know them and like learn about them, like you're gonna lead them better because maybe you know that Johnny likes to go hiking and you can talk about that. Like maybe you like to go hiking. And so now you have something in common ground that's not just all business all the time. Which doesn't have
Right,
to be super personal either. Like there's gotta be
right.
balance there.
There can be a balance there.
Yeah. I
So
did not
from
learn that in my 20s.
no, no. This is a very experienced seasoned 30 something.
Yes. Very much for
Because
me.
we're
It
so
was
much more experienced now. Please hear my sarcasm. I'm not saying that I know that much more than I did in my 20s. Um, but that being said, like if you were to take away or like leave a nugget for somebody who's in their 20s about your 20s, what would that
Mhm. Enjoy it. It's not that serious. Honestly. Honestly though, like I approached everything like it was so serious all the time. Like I had to
all
have
the time?
everything figured out and like life and I did a lot of comparison in my 20s,
Mhm.
especially in my late 20s, getting closer to 30. That 25 to 30 age gap, I was thinking about everything my parents had accomplished, my dad's career. They had two children by the time they were in their like barely hitting 30, you know? And so for me, it was like, oh, there's a timeline and it's ticking. That's not true. As somebody who is 40 years old, it's not true. Like the timeline it's going to tick away. But like you don't have to adhere to anything. And in my 20s, that very much was it. And also, I don't want to come from like a negative spin point, but also like in my 20s, there was a lot of pressure to find your partner and like get married and do all of those things. And the older you got in your 20s, the less you felt like you were living up to your potential and your purpose in life because as a female like there was a lot of pressure to find your spouse, get married, and have children and procreate on this earth, be fruitful and multiply. And so for me in my 20s, like that became like a big, annoying spot in my brain that constantly was on repeat. And I feel like I missed out on enjoying some little moments in life because I was constantly thinking about what I hadn't achieved yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can relate to that because I left Bible school not engaged, not
Mhm.
married,
Not a
not
ring by
even
spring.
not a ring by spring, and not even dating anyone. Like,
Yeah.
and I genuinely remember calling my mom thinking like this is it. Like I'm going to be single for the rest of my life because how else do you find somebody if you
Mhm.
don't get married in Bible school? And
Yeah.
it really was like the ring by spring was the joke. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking like what do I do now? And so I can relate to that. And I remember also when we did get married, I was 22 and I turned
Mhm,
23 2 weeks after our wedding. And I thought
mhm,
I was so old. Like I genuinely thought like I was on the old end of the line because everyone got married so young. And I look back
mhm.
on that now and I'm like, I was 22. Like, what?
Yeah,
And I look at some of the 22-year-olds that I know now and I'm like, what are we like? Why did I think I was so old? Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. No, but
and
it's fair.
and that's just the culture we were in. So
Mhm,
anyway, all that to say, I can relate to that, but also there's so much more to life. And if I didn't have the experiences that I had from 18 to 22, I wouldn't have been ready for marriage at
mhm.
22 or
Yeah,
23. And I just think that if I were to take away anything, like enjoy the season you're in,
mhm.
whether you're single, whether you're pursuing marriage, whether you're in ministry, whether you're working your job, like whatever that season is, like,
Going to school, like,
yeah.
there's so many things. Yeah.
And I love that you said don't take it so seriously because I wish somebody would have told me that because I really thought life or death were on the line with like all these decisions that
Mhm.
I was making in my 20s because it felt so serious and so urgent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's not. It's really not, and you're gonna change your mind so many times,
And
right?
it's
Like,
okay.
and it's okay. I remember being I the timeline again, it was 2013, 20 yeah, 2013, the summer of 2013. I think I was 26 or 27, and
Yeah.
I moved down to Florida thinking this is life because I didn't want to be in ministry anymore because that just didn't feel like the right fit anymore for me. And not in a bad way, like I just needed something new and refreshing, and the program that I was a part of just didn't feel right anymore. So I tailed it to Florida, made that happen for 8 months, and came back and like had to start over and kind of felt like I was failing. But like, don't be afraid to take chances. And your mind is always going to change. In my 20s, I moved to Florida twice. That wasn't my first rodeo of trying out Florida. It was the second rodeo. Should have known the first time that it wasn't going to work, but here we are. Now I think I know. But like it's okay to change your mind. It's okay. You might have did 4 years of college and said that doesn't work for me and go back for a different degree. And that's okay. And
Hmm.
I think that there's so much pressure to have it figured out by your early 20s, so that you can build on the rest of your life. I know people who are going into their 30s still in school because
Yeah.
they changed their mind, and that's okay. Like, we have to just be flexible.
Yeah. So the roaring 20s were what they were. And
Roaring 20s.
I love it. And I wouldn't trade it because, like I said, I learned so much. But being able to reflect on it now is just such a game changer. And so I guess if I were talking to myself 15 years ago, just- I don't like saying it like that because it makes me feel even older. Um, just like slow down and enjoy where you are and stop looking for the thing that's about to happen or going to come
Mhm,
because there's a lot happening right in front of you in this moment and it's good.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. That's a wrap on this episode of Two Main Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainfriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.